The alien queen let me leave, until her child ran after me calling my name. Captain Elias Kane had expected many things when he volunteered for the evacuation run to Karzeth space. He had expected fear, violence, maybe even a quick death. What he had not expected was silence. The human colony on Vierx 9 was already lost by the time his ship arrived. Alien war forms drifted through orbit like living statues, their bioships fused together in an unbroken net. No shots were fired. No warnings were given. The Karzeth Empire did not need threats. Their presence alone was enough. Elias led the last shuttle himself. He was not the bravest man in the fleet, but he was the calmest. When people panicked, he stayed steady. When systems failed, he adapted. That was how humans survived. Not by being the strongest, but by refusing to stop. The shuttle was hit before it cleared the atmosphere, not destroyed, disabled. Organic tendrils wrapped around the hull and dragged it toward the surface like a captured insect. The crew prepared for the end, but it did not come. They were taken alive. Elias woke inside a chamber that felt wrong in every possible way. The walls pulsed softly, breathing in slow rhythm. The air was warm and faintly sweet, heavy with unfamiliar life. Gravity felt uneven, like the floor itself was thinking about whether to hold him or not. He was alone. Hours passed, or maybe days. Time had no meaning here. Elias focused on slow breathing, on keeping his thoughts clear. Panic helped no one. Fear was natural, but surrender was optional. When the chamber finally opened, it did so without sound. The wall folded inward like living flesh, revealing a space so vast Elias felt small in a way he never had before. The alien queen waited at the center. She was enormous, her body rising like a living throne of layered armor and flowing bioluminescent veins. Her eyes, if they could be called that, were deep, ancient pools of intelligence. She did not move, yet the entire chamber seemed to respond to her presence. Elias dropped to one knee, not because he was ordered to, but because his body understood power when it sensed it. Her voice did not come through sound. It formed directly in his mind. Human. The word carried no emotion, no anger, no curiosity, just fact. Elias swallowed. Captain Elias Kane, Human Defense Fleet. Why are you here? To evacuate civilians, he answered honestly. We failed. Failure is expected. That stung more than any insult. Elias forced himself to keep speaking. We try anyway. The Queen's attention sharpened. Elias felt it like pressure behind his eyes. Why? The question was simple, but it carried weight. Empires rose and fell over simpler questions than that. Because people matter, Elias said. Even when the odds say they don't. Silence stretched. Elias became aware of other presences in the chamber, smaller minds, distant but watching. Servants, guards, witnesses. Your species is weak, the Queen said at last. Short-lived. Divided. Why resist the inevitable? Elias thought of burning colonies, lost friends, empty skies where Earth once shone bright and untouched. He thought of humanity's long history of losing and still standing back up. Because we don't know how to stop, he said. We break, but we keep going. The Queen studied him, not his body, but his thoughts, his memories. Elias felt exposed, but he did not fight it. There was no point hiding truth from something that old. He felt her touch moments he had forgotten. A childhood memory of holding his sister's hand during a storm. A rookie pilot crying after their first combat loss. Elias choosing to stay behind during evacuations again and again, not out of heroism, but habit. You care inefficiently, the Queen observed. Elias almost laughed. That sounds like us. A ripple passed through the chamber. Elias realized with a strange jolt that it was amusement. Subtle, restrained, but real. The Queen withdrew her presence slightly. You are not a threat. Elias blinked. He had expected death, torture, maybe experimentation, not dismissal. You're letting me go? He asked carefully. Yes, the word echoed through his mind with finality. Your species will fall regardless. Your life changes nothing. Elias stood slowly. His legs felt weak, but he stayed upright. Then why spare me? The Queen paused. Because killing you would change something. That answer chilled him more than a threat would have. Guards escorted him through corridors that twisted and shifted, organic pathways alive with soft light. He passed other chambers where beings of dozens of species were held or processed. Some stared at him with hollow eyes. Others did not look up at all. Elias wanted to stop, to help, to say something meaningful, but survival came first. That was another human truth. At the outer gate of the Hive City, he was released. No ceremony, no warning, just a silent opening and open sky beyond. His shuttle, repaired and waiting, rested on a living platform. Systems came online the moment he boarded. No traps, no weapons locked on. As the shuttle lifted off, Elias allowed himself one last look back. The Hive Palace rose behind him, vast and terrible. At its highest spire, the Queen stood watching. Her presence brushed his mind once more. Go, the shuttle broke atmosphere. Relief hit Elias like a wave. He slumped back into his seat, hands shaking now that the danger was past. He set course for human space, sending a priority signal to the fleet. He did not notice the small presence until it was too late. A sharp tug jolted the shuttle. Alarms flared. Power dropped to half. A containment field locked onto the ship, gentle but absolute. What now? Elias muttered, fighting rising panic. A new channel opened. At first there was only static, then a sound, a voice, small, unsteady, curious. Elias. Elias froze. The voice spoke again, clearer this time. Elias. His name, human language. Elias stared at the console, heart pounding. Who is this? Silence, then something like a hesitant breath. Do not go, the voice said. You said people matter. The stars outside the viewport seemed to dim. Elias felt the Queen's presence return, stronger this time. Not calm, not controlled. You were not supposed to be remembered. Behind the palace spire, a small figure emerged, running toward the edge of the platform, ignoring commands, ignoring guards. Too small to be a soldier, too important to be stopped. The Queen's child looked up at the sky and called Elias' name again. The containment field around the shuttle held firm, not crushing, not aggressive, but impossible to escape. Elias tried rerouting power, then cutting engines completely. Nothing changed. The field adjusted smoothly, as if it had expected every human response. The voice came again, closer now, clearer. Please, it said, do not leave. Elias swallowed hard. His heart was beating fast, but his hands moved steadily. Panic would not help, it never did. I can hear you, he said slowly, speaking into the open channel. Who are you? There was a pause, filled with soft background sounds, distant movement, overlapping thoughts, a hive full of life. I am learning, the voice replied. Mother says I should not speak yet. But I know your name. Elias closed his eyes for a moment. This was impossible. The Karzeth did not communicate like this. Their young did not speak to prisoners. Their royalty did not allow it. You shouldn't be talking to me, Elias said gently. I don't want you to get in trouble. I do not want you to disappear, the child said. When you leave, things go quiet. Before Elias could answer, another presence slammed into his mind, vast, controlled, but burning with alarm. Enough. The Queen's voice echoed like thunder, restrained behind walls. The channel shifted. The child's voice faded into the background as the Queen took full control of the connection. Human, you will remain where you are. Elias exhaled slowly. With respect, he said, choosing his words carefully, I thought you let me go. I did, the Queen replied, and you should not have been recalled. Then why am I still here? Elias asked, because something has gone wrong. The shuttle was pulled gently but firmly back toward the hive world. Elias did not resist. Resistance without understanding was just another way to die. As they descended, Elias noticed something strange. The hive city below was not moving the way it had before. The flow felt uneven, conflicted, like a body reacting to an unexpected wound. The shuttle landed inside a smaller chamber this time, less grand but more heavily guarded. Elias was escorted out, not by warriors but by attendants, thin, careful beings whose minds brushed his with quiet curiosity. They led him to a chamber where the Queen waited again. She looked unchanged, but Elias felt the difference. Her presence was tighter, focused inward like a storm held behind walls. Explain, she demanded. Elias spread his hands. I didn't do anything, he said honestly. I don't even understand how your child knows my name. The Queen searched him, deeper this time. Elias felt memories surface without his control, moments in his cell, quiet thoughts spoken only to himself. Stories he told in his mind to stay sane. Words he repeated like anchors. You were thinking at her, the Queen said slowly. Elias frowned. No, I was just thinking. That is the problem, the Queen pulled back, disturbed. Your species does not contain itself. Elias almost smiled at that. Almost. You asked why we keep going, he said. That's part of it. We don't shut things away easily. We share, even when we don't mean to. The Queen was silent for a long moment. The child entered the chamber. Guards tensed immediately, but none moved to stop her. She was smaller than Elias had imagined, still alien, still clearly Karzeth, but softer in form. Her eyes were too large for her face, glowing faintly as they focused on him. She walked straight to Elias and stopped just short of touching him. "You came back," she said, relief clear in her voice. "I didn't have much choice," Elias replied quietly. The queen's attention snapped to the child. "You were ordered to remain silent." "I tried," the child said, "but he was leaving." The queen stiffened. Leaving should not cause distress. "But it did," the child insisted. "When he goes, the stories stop." The chamber grew very still. Elias looked between them. "What stories?" he asked. The child tilted her head. "The ones about staying together when things are broken, the ones about standing up again." Elias felt something twist in his chest. Those were not stories he remembered telling out loud. The queen turned her focus inward, scanning her child's mind. Elias felt the shock ripple outward as she saw what was there. Human memories, human values, human hope, not copied, not stolen, but absorbed. "This should not be possible," the queen said, more to herself than to Elias. "We adapt," Elias said softly, "sometimes faster than we realize." The queen's gaze hardened. "You are a contamination risk." Elias nodded. "I figured." The guards shifted, tension rising. Elias braced himself for the end he had always expected, but the queen hesitated. The child stepped closer to Elias and looked up at him. "Did I do wrong?" she asked. Elias knelt slowly, lowering himself to her level. No one stopped him. "No," he said. "You learned that's never wrong." The queen flinched just slightly. "He teaches defiance," she said. "I teach survival," Elias replied. "There's a difference." The queen considered him with renewed intensity. "If your influence spreads, it will destabilize the hive." "Or strengthen it," Elias countered. "Change doesn't always mean collapse." "You speak as if you know us." "I know empires," Elias said. "I know what happens when they never question themselves." The queen turned away, her massive form shifting. The hive responded to her unease, lights dimming, structures pulsing irregularly. "You were meant to leave unnoticed," she said. "A single human spared would mean nothing." "But you spared the wrong one," Elias said gently, "and I met the right person." The child smiled faintly. The queen faced him again. "You will remain here." Elias stiffened. "As a prisoner." As a variable, that was somehow worse. "You're afraid," Elias realized. The queen did not deny it. For the first time since the rise of the Karzeth Empire, something new had entered royal blood. Not rebellion, not weakness, perspective. Elias was escorted back to a chamber different from before. Larger. Less confining, he was not restrained. Hours passed. Then whispers began, not spoken words but shifts in thought across the hive, servants hesitating, guards questioning orders before obeying, the child's influence rippling outward, carried by curiosity and connection. Elias felt it happening, even without direct contact. Humanity had always been like this. They did not conquer minds. They changed them. Far above, the queen watched the hive pulse with unfamiliar rhythm. Letting one human go had been a mistake. Letting him return might change everything. The chamber Elias was given felt less like a cell and more like a waiting room for a decision that had not yet been made. The walls no longer pressed inward. The light was softer. The air flowed instead of clinging. It was comfort designed by a species that did not fully understand comfort. Elias sat on the smooth surface that served as a bed and tried to slow his thoughts. That was difficult. Every few moments he felt gentle touches against his mind. Curious, careful, not hostile. The hive was watching him, but not the way a predator watched prey. It was watching the way a child watched fire, fascinated, uncertain, and a little afraid. He thought of Earth, of stars humans would probably never reclaim. Of how strange it was that the most important moment of his life might not be a battle but a conversation. The chamber opened without warning. The child entered alone. No guards followed her. Elias stood immediately, then stopped himself and lowered his posture instead. He remembered how sudden movements had frightened her before. "You came again," she said, pleased. "I didn't leave," Elias replied. "I was just waiting." She nodded as if that made perfect sense and sat beside him, folding her limbs in a way that was clumsy but intentional. She was trying to copy him. "What are you waiting for?" she asked. "For your mother to decide what to do with me." The child considered this. "She is thinking very loudly." Elias almost laughed. "Yeah, she does that." The child looked at him with wide eyes. "You are not afraid." "I am," Elias said honestly. "I just don't let it drive." "Fear is useful," the child said thoughtfully. "Mother says it keeps order." "It can," Elias agreed, "but it can also keep things broken." The child tilted her head. "You fix broken things?" "I try," Elias said. Mostly people. That seemed to please her. She reached out, hesitated, then lightly touched his hand. Elias felt a warmth spread through his chest, not physical heat, but something deeper. Connection. The hive reacted. A ripple of alarm spread outward. Elias felt distant minds turn toward them. Guards stiffened elsewhere. Servants paused mid-task. The queen arrived moments later. Her presence filled the chamber like gravity increasing all at once. The child did not pull away from Elias. That alone caused shockwaves through the hive. "You are crossing boundaries," the queen said to Elias. "I'm sitting," Elias replied calmly. "She came to me." The child looked up. "He listens." The queen's focus split, examining both of them at once. Listening is not teaching. Elias nodded. "It's where teaching starts." The queen studied the child again, more carefully than before. Elias could feel it now. The change was not surface level. It was woven into how the child processed the world. Human traits did not overwrite Karzeth instincts. They layered on top of them. "This influence is spreading," the queen said, "through her and now through the hive." "Because it resonates," Elias said. "You don't spread it by force, you spread it by meaning something." The queen's silence was heavy. "Your species does not conquer through dominance." "No," Elias said. "We survive through bonds." The queen turned inward, consulting ancient memory. Empires rose through strength. They fell through weakness. That was law, yet the hive had never felt like this before, not unstable. Just awake, servants questioned orders that caused unnecessary suffering. Guards hesitated before punishment. Efficiency dropped, but cohesion increased. Fear weakened. Loyalty deepened. These were not signs of decay. They were signs of change. "You are a seed," the queen said. Elias met her gaze. "We don't choose where we land." The queen faced the child. "You should not grow like this." The child's voice was steady. "Why?" "Because it is dangerous." "Then why does it feel right?" the child asked. The queen had no immediate answer. Elias stood slowly. He did not raise his voice. He did not challenge her authority. He simply spoke. "You asked why humans keep going," he said. "This is why. When we find something that matters, we change for it, and we help others change too." The queen turned her attention fully to him. "And if this change destroys us, then it wasn't strong enough to survive," Elias said. "But if it survives, it'll be stronger than before." The hive pulsed, reacting to the truth in his words. For the first time, the queen hesitated openly. "You will be examined," she said at last. "Studied, not harmed?" Elias nodded. "Fair." He was escorted to a chamber filled with living instruments, structures that read thought patterns, emotional responses, memory flow. Karzeth scholars watched from behind organic barriers, their minds sharp and focused. They tested him gently at first. Questions, memories, moral dilemmas. They expected contradictions. They found consistency. Elias spoke of loss without hatred, of war without pride, of survival without cruelty. Not because humans were better, but because cruelty cost energy humans could not afford to waste. The scholars shared findings. Human thought patterns prioritize connection under stress. Emotional bonds increase resilience. Shared meaning reduces internal conflict. Dangerous traits, powerful traits. Meanwhile, the child moved freely through the hive. Where she went, conversations changed. Not louder, not rebellious, just different. Prisoners were fed before being processed. Pain was minimized where it served no function. Orders were questioned, not refused, but examined. The hive did not collapse, it adapted. The queen felt it all. The empire had ruled through fear for thousands of cycles. Fear was efficient, but it was brittle, it cracked under pressure. What replaced it was slower, stronger. The queen summoned Elias again. He entered the grand chamber alone this time. No guards, no restraints. "You did not intend this," she said. "No," Elias replied. "But intention doesn't stop consequence." "You will not leave." Elias accepted that quietly, "but you will not die either." That surprised him. "You will remain as an observer, a reminder. You will not speak publicly. You will not teach openly." Elias nodded. "I can do that." The queen's gaze sharpened. "But understand this, human. If this change leads to weakness, to collapse, to civil fracture." "I'll accept responsibility," Elias said. The queen paused. "Responsibility is a human concept." "It's one of our better ones," Elias said. Far above them, the hive continued to hum, not with obedience, but with purpose. The child watched from a distance, her eyes bright. The queen looked at her future and saw something unfamiliar. Not conquest, continuation. And for the first time in her long reign, she did not know whether to fear it or protect it. The change did not arrive like a rebellion. There were no alarms, no weapons raised, no sudden violence. That was what confused the Karzeth most. Change arrived quietly. Elias noticed it first in small things. A guard paused before issuing pain-based discipline and chose restraint instead. A servant adjusted a prisoner's restraints to ease breathing. A transport route was altered so captured civilians would not pass through fear chambers meant to break morale. None of it was ordered. None of it was forbidden. But it was new. The Queen felt it too. Every thought in the hive passed in some way through her awareness. For the first time in her reign, that awareness felt divided. Not fractured, but layered. Old instincts still ruled, but new considerations slowed decisions that once came instantly. Efficiency was dropping. Stability was rising. The elders of the empire noticed. They gathered not in a physical place, but in a shared mind space older than the hive itself. Ancient entities, grown and reinforced through centuries of conquest, turned their attention inward. The human is the cause, one elder thought. No, another answered. The child is. The child is the vector, the first replied. Remove her influence. The Queen felt that thought like a blade near her core. No. Silence followed. That alone was unprecedented. The Queen had never refused the elders before. Elias was unaware of this meeting, but he felt the tension ripple through the hive like a coming storm. The air seemed heavier, the light dimmer, minds sharpened with suspicion. He was summoned again, this time not by guards, but by the Queen herself. She met him in a chamber overlooking the inner hive. Below them, millions of lives moved in organized flow, the empire functioning as it always had, yet not quite the same. They are afraid, Elias said quietly. The Queen did not deny it. Fear keeps order, she replied, but fear also feeds on itself. You're seeing the cost, Elias said. You always paid it, you just never questioned it. The Queen's gaze remained fixed on the hive. The elders believe the solution is simple. Elias did not ask what that solution was. They'll want me gone, he said. Yes, dead. Eventually, Elias nodded. He had known this moment would come. Empires did not forgive disruption, no matter how peaceful it appeared. I won't resist, he said, but don't punish the child for my existence. The Queen turned to him sharply. You would sacrifice yourself. I've done it before, Elias replied. That's not special. What's special is what comes after. The Queen studied him with something close to uncertainty. You believe your death will strengthen this change. No, Elias said. I believe how you handle it will. Before the Queen could answer, the child entered the chamber. She had learned to sense tension. Her steps were cautious now. Mother, she said, the hive is loud again. The Queen knelt, lowering her vast form until her eyes were level with the child's. There is conflict. Because of him? The child asked, glancing at Elias. Yes. The child's posture straightened. Then I will speak. The Queen froze. You must not. I must, the child insisted. He taught me that silence can be harm. Elias felt his breath catch. He had never said those words aloud, not here, not anywhere. The Queen looked at him. You taught without speaking. Elias said nothing. The child stepped forward and did something that sent shockwaves through the hive. She linked herself openly, not just to the Queen, to everyone. Her thoughts, emotions, and intentions spread outward in a controlled wave, touching every connected mind in the empire. This was something only the Queen had ever done. And the child spoke, not with words, with feeling. She shared what she had learned from Elias. Not memories, but understanding. The idea that strength could protect instead of dominate. That fear was not the only way to create unity. That survival did not require cruelty. She shared the feeling of safety she experienced simply by being listened to. The hive reacted. Some minds recoiled, others resisted. But many, too many resonated. The elders erupted in outrage. This is corruption. This is evolution, the Queen replied. You are endangering the empire. The Queen felt the truth clearly now. The empire was already endangered. It had been for a long time. Fear had held it together, but it had also hollowed it out. The Queen made a decision that would define her reign forever. She severed the elders' command channel. Across the hive, ancient control structures went silent. Order did not collapse. Instead, it redistributed. Local leaders took responsibility. Guards adapted protocols. Servants acted with autonomy for the first time in their existence. The empire did not shatter. It breathed. The elders attempted to reassert control. The Queen responded with authority older than their objections. This empire will change. You cannot do this alone, they warned. I am not alone, the Queen answered. She turned to Elias. You must leave. Elias blinked. What? Now, she said, before they regroup. You said I would not leave, Elias said. That was before. The queen placed a massive limb gently against the floor, a gesture of respect Elias had never seen before. If you remain, you become a symbol to fight over. If you leave, you become a memory. Memories can be powerful, Elias said. Yes, the queen replied, but they do not bleed. The child stepped forward, eyes shining. Will you come back? She asked. Elias knelt in front of her. I don't think I should, he said honestly. You don't need me anymore, she frowned. I still want you, Elias smiled sadly. Wanting and needing aren't the same. You're strong enough now. She considered this, then nodded slowly. I will remember, she said. That's enough, Elias replied. The queen personally escorted him to the shuttle. The hive watched in silence, minds heavy with significance. As Elias boarded, the queen spoke one last time. Your species frightens us. Good, Elias said. That means you understand us a little better. The shuttle lifted off. Behind it, the Empire did not give chase. Inside the hive, conflict still burned. Elders plotted, resistance formed, but the foundation had shifted. Fear no longer ruled alone. The queen returned to her throne, knowing what must come next. Change required sacrifice. And this time it would be hers. The galaxy did not notice the change at first. Empires rarely collapse in explosions. Most of them end in silence, in slow shifts that history only understands later. The Karzeth Empire did not fall the day Elias Kane left. It continued to function. Ships still moved. Worlds still paid tribute. The hive still pulsed with coordinated life, but something fundamental had changed. Fear was no longer alone. The queen felt it every cycle. Decisions that once came instantly now carried weight. Not hesitation, but consideration. She could still command absolute obedience if she chose to, but choosing it felt heavier than it ever had before. The elders did not forgive her. They gathered their influence quietly, spreading doubt where they could. They whispered that mercy weakened the hive, that compassion was inefficiency, that the queen had been corrupted by a human. They were not entirely wrong. The queen had been changed. The child stood beside her more often now, watching, listening, learning. She asked questions no ruler in Karzeth history had ever asked. Why do they fear us? Why do we take when we already have enough? Why must obedience hurt? The queen answered when she could. When she could not, she admitted it. That admission alone reshaped the hive. Resistance came slowly, then all at once. A sector refused to process prisoners. Another rerouted resources to damaged worlds instead of expansion fleets. An elder-controlled node attempted to enforce old law through force. For the first time in centuries, Karzeth fought Karzeth, not with open war, with choice. The queen acted. She did not crush the resistance. She did not execute the elders. Instead, she did something far more dangerous. She stepped down. The announcement echoed across the hive like a rupture in reality. A queen did not abdicate. A queen ruled until death. I will no longer be the center, her thought broadcast calmly. This empire must learn to stand without fear of me. The elders panicked. Control structures faltered. For a brief moment, chaos threatened. Then something unexpected happened. The hive stabilized itself. Local leaders emerged, those trusted, not feared. Guards followed commanders who protected rather than punished. Servants organized distribution without waiting for orders. The child became a symbol not of rule but of direction. She did not command. She listened. The empire fractured into autonomous sectors bound by shared survival instead of enforced dominance. Expansion halted. Borders hardened not with aggression but with restraint. Other species noticed. Scouting fleets returned with reports that made no sense. The Karzeth were no longer erasing resistance worlds. They were negotiating, sometimes withdrawing. Sometimes helping stabilize regions they had once exploited. Fear shifted across the galaxy, not of conquest, of unpredictability. Humanity learned the truth years later. Elias Kane arrived back in human space to a civilization still licking its wounds. Colonies had been lost. Fleets were thin. Humanity had survived, but barely. He told his story. At first, no one believed him. Then long-range sensors confirmed it. Karzeth fleets altering course. Prisoner releases. Border treaties offered without threat. Human analysts reached the same conclusion with growing unease. Humanity had not defeated the Empire. They had infected it. Elias refused medals, refused command. He returned to evacuation work, to rebuilding efforts, to quiet places where people needed help more than heroes. History tried to make him into one anyway. Across the stars, the child grew. She learned governance without domination, strength without cruelty. When sectors disagreed, she encouraged dialogue, not force. Some failed, some rebelled, some returned. The empire did not become gentle, it became restrained. That distinction mattered. The former queen watched from the edges of power, advising only when asked. She had given up control, but not responsibility. She knew what this cost. The elders never stopped plotting. One cycle, their patience ended. They struck not at the child, but at the symbol they blamed most: human space. A splinter fleet broke away, armed and furious, launching toward human systems with old doctrine and new desperation. Human defenses scrambled. They would not survive a full assault. The child sensed it immediately. She did not hesitate. She reached outward not to command, but to ask. "Will you help me stop this?" The Empire answered, not as one fleet, as many. Karzeth ships moved to intercept their own kind. They did not destroy the splinter fleet outright. They disabled engines, boarded vessels, restrained leaders. No planets burned. No species was erased. The galaxy watched in shock. For the first time in known history, an empire had stopped itself. Humanity stood down, weapons powered but unfired, as Karzeth ships formed a protective perimeter around human worlds. Elias watched the feeds in silence. He did not feel pride. He felt relief. The child sent one message across the distance, quiet and personal: "I remembered." Years later, scholars would argue whether humanity was truly dangerous. Some would say no, they were too fragile, too divided. Others would argue the opposite. Humans did not conquer with force. They changed what force was for. The former queen observed the stars from her chamber, no longer a throne. The empire continued without her rule, imperfect but alive in a way it had never been. Letting one human go had reshaped everything, not because he was special, but because he was human. And humans, she had learned, did not need to win wars to leave their mark. They only needed to matter to someone who could change the world.